All right, big section coming up here between ACLs and route summarization. And we're going to start with ACLs and spend quite a bit of time with that before we even get to summarization. Because ACLs are not just a huge part of Cisco exams, they're a huge part of everyday Cisco life. The fundamental purpose of ACLs is to allow a router to identify traffic based on criteria that you and I set, and it can involve IP addresses, source or destination, source and destination. It can involve port numbers, it can involve protocol types. As we're going to see with some of the more esoteric types of ACLs I'm going to show you late in this section, you can even tie it down to take an action as depending on what time of day it is or what day of the week it is. Now again, the fundamental purpose is to then have the router take a specific action against said traffic. But no matter what your specialty is, present or future, you're going to be using ACLs because more and more we use them to identify traffic to take certain actions, and it's not just permit deny. With what we call quality of service, we could identify traffic that we could say, okay, during times of high congestion when we know we're going to drop some traffic or the likelihood of dropping traffic is higher, then I want this traffic to have the highest priority, and I want this particular traffic to be the most discard eligible, that is, the first to be dropped. What we're going to do in this section, we're going to block traffic from entering an interface, we're going to prevent and allow telnet access with one, and the list goes on and on. You've just got to have this skill down cold. The good news is, as if all that wasn't good news, but the really good news, I'll put it that way, is that when you learn a few fundamental rules and you apply them continually, these are easy. You're not going to find anything difficult with access control lists. As far as exams go, you got to watch your syntax. Of course, on multiple choice questions, you could have 6 different lists up there. And it's like, which one is the best to perform this kind of task? But you'll find those to be easy as long as you remember a few simple rules, all of which we're going to go over several times in this course, and just apply the rules every time. We could be talking 100 plus points on your exams, and you'll be ready for it. And you'll also be ready for future studies because really, I can't think of any single topic that will impact your future studies immediately and in the future as much as ACLs do. IP version 6 is right there with it, but that's not quite as widespread or not something that you configure on a regular basis as you do ACLs. Now, the following description is going to sound formal. We got a couple of things here in the beginning of this section. It's one of those things that when you say it out loud or you read it, it sounds really complicated, and then when you do it, you find out that it's really not. So let's go over the theory first. When a packet enters or exits an interface with an ACL applied, the packet is compared against the criteria of the ACL. And again, for the most part, that's going to involve IP addresses, but it can involve port numbers, it can involve protocol numbers, just about any value you can think of. Now what happens is, if the packet matches the first line of the ACL, the appropriate permit or deny action is then taken. And then that's it. But if the packet doesn't match the first line, we drop down to the second line. If there is a match, as you'd expect, the appropriate action is taken. If there is no match, the third line of the ACL is compared to the packet. Now, of course, the first obvious question here is, well, what if there's never a match? What happens then? Well, there actually has to be a match because of, I kid you not, an invisible line that's at the end of every ACL. You must remember this when you're taking your exam. Very important. It's going to continue, that process is going to continue until a match is found, and as I mentioned, at that point the ACL stops running. But if none is found, we have what we call an implicit deny. And an easy way to remember this, and I'll mention it at least once more during this part of the course, if a packet is not expressly permitted by a line in the ACL, it will be implicitly denied. Forgetting about this invisible deny, and please call it implicit, I just call it invisible because you don't see it at the end of an ACL. So we're very visual in this business, obviously. We're always looking at things. And it's easy to forget, especially when we start with ACLs, okay, I have this deny all at the end of every ACL. But forgetting about this invisible deny, this implicit deny, it's the number one reason that you have to troubleshoot ACLs. It's the number one reason that you don't get the results you want. The number two reason that we'll also be looking at in this part of the course is not paying attention to the order of the lines in the ACL, because this isn't the routing table. We're not going through looking for the best match. The first match ends the entire process, and whatever we put there, permit or deny, that's what's going to take place. I know anytime you're troubleshooting, and I know this, it happens to me, and I've been doing this for quite a while, it's easy to get frustrated on occasion, just think, something's wrong here. But with an ACL, I mean, the logic is pure. If we're not getting the result that we wanted, if traffic is being permitted that we didn't want to have permitted, if traffic's being denied and we didn't want it to be denied, it's because we wrote the ACL incorrectly. And it's either got something to do with that implicit deny, or it's got something to do with the order of the lines in the ACL. I've got a drill for you in this part of the course that'll show you exactly how important that is just with a 2 or 3 line ACL. Now again, the good news is everything we're going to talk about with ACLs in general, the line-by-line matching process that we've already talked about, the implicit deny that we'll talk about throughout this section, and some other default behaviors, there are default behaviors of every ACL type discussed in this section. They all work the same. They all have the implicit deny at the end. Now let's talk about our 2 most common ACLs and the first 2 that we'll actually configure, and that is standard and extended ACLs. A standard ACL is concerned with only one factor, the source IP address of the packet. That is it. The destination IP address is not considered. Not only is it not considered, you can't even put it in a line of a standard ACL. You have very few options with a standard ACL. It is incredibly standard. No port numbers, no protocol numbers, no nothing outside of that source IP address. Now, extended ACLs consider both the source and destination IP address of the packet. Note that I'm not saying source or destination. By default, it considers both. And we can consider port numbers, protocol numbers, and other values as well. And we're going to see those on live Cisco routers here later in this section. Now, standard and extended ACLs do not use the same numeric ranges. You have to watch out for these on the exam. The real world, of course, but especially multiple choice questions on your exam, because standard ACLs use 2 different ranges, 1 through 99 and 1300 through 1999. Extended lists use 100 through 199 and then 2000 to 2699. And I'm going to bring the live equipment up in a moment, and we'll take a look at these ranges, and you'll see plenty of others. We don't have to have them all down for the CCNA exam, but I would definitely know these 4 ranges. You got to know these 4. But let me ask you first, before we bring the live equipment up, why do you think Cisco did that? And keep it clean. Keep it clean. The answer is not to mess with your head. Why do you think that could have ever happened? If you want to think about it for a second, pause the video, because I'm going to go ahead and tell you. There once was this magic time of naivete in computing, or in Cisco computing, I should say, where we actually thought that that was the most ACLs we were ever going to use. It's like, who the heck is ever going to need more than 98 or 99 standard ACLs? It's ridiculous, because of course we didn't have a lot of the things we have now. We didn't have all the security features where we have to identify traffic. There are a lot of things we have today that in Cisco land that we did not have when we were first developing standard ACLs. Now, extended lists were the same way. It's like, well, holy cow, who's ever going to need more than this many ACLs? Well, unbelievably, there was once a time where we thought a floppy disk was going to be the biggest portable storage unit of computing we would ever need. And if you've never touched one, if you've never touched one in your life, you're probably really laughing at that. I still chuckle at it because it's like, my gosh, we can put data on this disk and carry it from one room to the next. Hey, that was a big deal at the time. But my point is not to laugh at that, although it's a little funny in retrospect. We thought that was as big as it was ever going to get. But the reason is that Cisco just had no absolute idea that we would ever need more than that many ACLs, the original ranges 1 through 99 and 100 through 199. No idea. Nobody knew. So as we started hitting the limits in certain organizations, Cisco realized, hey, we better do something about that. And of course, other types of ACLs had already been worked into the iOS that were taking up natural ranges, like say 200 through 299. So instead, to just make a couple of huge ranges, they made 1300 through 1999 for the standard and 2000 to 269 for the extended. So know all four of those ranges. And believe it or not, there are organizations that bump up against that ceiling. But we have a way around that with another kind of access list that we'll talk about later. In the next video, very beginning of the video, I'm going to bring the live equipment up. We'll see these ranges and some other ones. Again, right now we're concentrating on standard and extended ACLs. We'll talk about them a little bit more, but then we'll start configuring them, and that will happen on the next video. I'll see you there.